computer, so then we don't have any background noise. That'd be great. Thank you. So my name is Rashmi. I'm with North York Community House. I just want to start with the line acknowledgement. I want to respectfully acknowledge the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, the Huron, Wendat, and the neutral peoples of whose sacred, ancestral, and traditional territories I am speaking from today. This land is part of the Dish with One Spoon Treaty between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe peoples and symbolizes the agreement to share, protect our resources, and not to engage in conflict. This place is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people, and acknowledging them reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendship of Indigenous peoples. Thank you. Joan, if you'd like to introduce. You're on mute, Joan.
Yeah, I always take directions. I hope everybody had a great holiday and Happy New Year. Our fearless leader is back from Mexico. And I guess take it away, Nigaan.
That introduction was, what the heck? Yes, I did go to Mexico, and I had a lovely time. And I think I'm tanned. You can sort of see my lines there. But it's nice to be here. Bonjour de me magaduk, Nigaan webadum the digital cost nabigo shin dodem, even when the It's nice to be here. This is part 4 of a 10-part series that we've got going on here. So it's going to pick up a lot of the strings that we had done for the first 3. And just looking ahead, next month, I am there physically. And so at some point, I think you're going to want to ask for clarification, or I'm just looking for the exact date of when I'm there. When is it? Oh, there it is right there. February 8th. So no doubt there's been something that's been said over the past few sessions, maybe one today, in which you want some clarification on something. You want to hear, oh, what do you mean by that? Or I want to know more information about this. Or maybe there's a comment that you want to make because you don't always have to ask a question. So maybe you're like, I have heard this differently. And that's fantastic. We want to hear about difference. In fact, what I always say is that the best thing Indigenous peoples do is disagree. We talk about our different traditions, the different perspectives that we have, and that's going to lead perfectly into my conversation for today. But just looking ahead, in the February 8th session, I will physically be there. So I'm assuming that many of you will still be probably virtual, but in the North York Community House, I will be there. And so I'm hoping that, I think Joan's been organizing a bit of a schedule for me. I'll be, I think, spending a little bit of time with people outside of the North York Community House, which is great. And so we'll do the session again at noon your time, 11 a.m. my time, but I will be physically in Toronto because I'm giving the keynote at the Trent Elders and Traditional Knowledge Keepers Gathering on Friday. So in Peterborough, Trent University. And so I'll be doing that. I'll be coming to you guys the day before that. So I'll be kind of doing a little multi-tour, little mini tour there. But what I want to talk about today is about education, right? Or what we might refer to as Gindasuin, right? Which is the idea of knowledge. Indigenous knowledge, or Anishinaabe knowledge, which is where I come from, is almost impossible to tell you what it is. So you might think to yourself, well, why would you name a session talking about something that's impossible to describe? Well, it's because it's something that you have to experience. So I'm going to give you a little experience today to illustrate to you what Indigenous knowledge is, or Indigenous education is, because it would be impossible for me to say Indigenous education is this thing. If you go to this thing, you'll experience education. It's not like school. Like, for example, what is school? The time in which we learn, or we gain knowledge. Well, it's a formal process. School is a formal process in a fixed time period, usually 9 to 3:30, where there is quite siloed or differentiated or separated systems of thought in which you go to math, then you go to social studies, then you go to science, and then you go to physical education. And it's a very secularized model, meaning it's a very separated model. Indigenous education doesn't work like that. There is no beginning or end. There is formal aspects, but most of education is quite informal because it's what's called experiential, meaning something that you have to experience. You have to go for the walk. You can't just talk about going for a walk to pick medicines. You actually have to go pick medicines because it's about your experience with your own self, your body, your mind, your heart, your spirit. So for Anishinaabe, there are 4 layers, 4 parts of yourself. There's mind, that's the way that we critically analyze things. Our body, that's our kinesthetic experience, the ways all what we call the 5 senses: touch, taste, feel, hearing, those kinds of things. But we actually have 7 senses because we refer to the 6th sense as intuition and the 7th sense as kind of a feeling of the future. A lot of people describe that as love. So we have several different ways that our body operates because we believe that there is a way that our body operates that is very mysterious, or what we refer to as the Manitou, or the spirit, or the word we know for mystery. And I've spoken about that before in our relationship to treaty and our relationship with gift giving. So for Anishinaabe, there's 7 senses. It's not just touch, taste, feeling. There's also intuition and love, or the future. That's what my name means, by the way. Nigaan means the future. It means being able to see in front. And a lot of people would say, you believe in the front, you believe in tomorrow. So that is the love that you know that there is a tomorrow. And the evidence of that is when the sun comes over the horizon, which is why we do a very special sunrise ceremony where we face the sun and we offer our gifts, our tobacco, our name, our commitments, because we have a love and a belief that in the future, the sun will rise, the sun will give us that gift. So getting back to how we learn. So there's the mind, there's the body, there's the heart, which is what gives us a reason to be. And I can't explain the heart to you because the heart is inherently mysterious. Reflecting back to what I said just a minute ago, it has a lot to do with time. It has a lot to do with your kind of feelings. It's about the 4th thing. It's related intricately with the 4th thing, which is spirit. But the heart is about why you live. It's what we often refer to as our purpose. And we only know those things through experience, through our names, through our interactions with the earth, through our interactions with each other. So that's the third way that we learn, is through our heart. And then the 4th part, which is spirit. And that's the most mysterious thing of all, but it is also the biggest part of us. It's the part that gives us creativity. It's the part that gives us the desire to do things. It gives us the ability to dream. Which is the most powerful gift that Anishinaabe have, which is that we can dream of anything. And that's what our spirit does, especially when we sleep, because those of you that experience your spirit, you know that your spirit goes and visits things, travels across the world, and travels to places like New Orleans or Africa or to the moon or to another planet, or goes through time, can even go and visit your ancestors, because our spirit is always wandering. Our spirit always wants to go and learn things and see things and experience things. And when we sleep, we experience our spirit the most. And so what I've just explained to you is that Indigenous education, or Anishinaabe education, from what I'm about to explain, and I'm going to explain to you what a metaphor of what it looks like, has 4 different parts to it. How you learn through your mind, your critical analysis, your body, which you learn through all the different parts of your body, and not just the parts of your body that you know really well, taste, touch, feeling, hearing, those things, but also through your intuition, things that you can't quite explain, but you know. It's like a certain feeling, like you can feel when someone's lying to you, for example, or you can feel when someone is attracted to you, or you can feel when a situation is very emotional. That's your intuition. And then you also have this kind of faith about you, which is about a believing that things are coming, and that's Nigaan, right? Which is that feeling of love. That's the 7th kind of sense of your body, which relates with your heart. And that's why your 3rd part of your learning is through this really mysterious thing that drives you to come to a session like today, to get you to get up in the morning, to get you to go and get your kids dressed and send them to school, because purpose is what your 3rd part of yourself is, which relates with your 4th part, which is spirit. So what I've just described to you is all the different ways Anishinaabe people learn. So whether you're in a formal setting, like a ceremony, for example, in a lodge, or in a let's say a Sundance, or you're in a sacred moment of, let's say, a name-giving ceremony, or an Oshkade ceremony, which is a fire ceremony, or a Wabo ceremony, which is a water ceremony, whatever that might be. It's a very formal experience that you learn through 4 different ways. And Anishinaabe thinkers, Anishinaabe leaders, will make sure that the people are learning in the 4 ways. How is it that this ceremony interacts with the mind? How does it interact with the body? How does it interact with the heart? How does it interact with your spirit? That's why, for example, it's not just about sitting there in a desk. Like, for example, if I were to say to you, okay, I'm going to tell you this story, uh, and I hope that you learn from it. It's going to probably be a story that's going to involve all parts to you, but it's going to really involve your mind, really you imagining that story. But then what I get you to do is feel something, which is why a good storyteller makes you feel something, and makes you experience something and see things, and may even hear sounds like different voices. That's where your body comes in. And that leads, of course, to your heart, because then you start to feel things and gives you a vision of what might be coming in the future. But lastly, and probably the most important thing, is once you hear a story or a song, is you must tell it back to me. Or if you hear a song or you experience a dance, you must now get up and dance, because your spirit requires you to do it. Your spirit demands for you to experience the entirety of what that song, that teaching, that story has to offer to you. So you have to do something now, which is why it's not just about you sitting there passively. It's about you now having to do something. That's why an Anishinaabe teacher will never say, okay, I'm done now. You've heard my story, and I just walk away. No, you have to do something now. What is that usually thing that we have to do? Is we have to give each other gifts, or you have to offer what you learned from the story. Or sometimes I might ask you, repeat back to me the song. Or I might say, okay, now it's time for everyone to dance. We must now dance the song, the dance that I just taught you. So I can show you how to dance. We're going to all dance. We're going to do a fish song, and we're going to dance like fish. Now you must all stand up and do this dance with you, because your mind, your body, your heart, and most importantly, your spirit demands it of you, so that you can do a full experience of education. Now that I've explained to you the pedagogy of Indigenous education, Anishinaabe education, and I don't really care what nation you go to, there is some element of what I just described in it, meaning that mind, body, heart, spirit, we learn in multiple ways, and we must experience what we talk about and do it as much as we just listen passively to it. This is where school does not work for Indigenous peoples, because A, it separates the world into all these different parts where we inherently want to see the world as connected. B, it's about passively learning and never experiencing school. So you really just get your mind, but you never get your body, heart, or your spirit involved with your learning. So Western people think, oh, well, that's the only thing that matters is your mind. And maybe, you know, writing something out or something like that might be a bit, but it's so minimal in terms of your body and your heart and your spirit that that's why many Indigenous learners just don't do well in school, because the school is very one-dimensional and only focuses on one part of yourself. And then C is that you never really have to demonstrate your learning other than through your one particular way of your mind, which is why the demonstration of learning is oftentimes very surface. Like, for example, when many of you that went to school probably experienced this, you probably don't remember what you learned in school. You probably went to school and you probably don't even remember the things that were gifted to you by your teachers, by the people that you worked with, the textbooks that you learned from, because school really doesn't get you to do deep learning. It doesn't get you to do, the only time that you do deep learning, I bet the things that you do remember, sports, the arts, maybe something that involves an internship or some kind of action, like oftentimes chemistry, or let's say a good English class where you do some performance theater, things like that. But like, I'm going to probably promise you that most things in school you did not remember. And that's not what the purpose of Indigenous education is. The purpose of Indigenous education is to impart knowledge, to empower people so that they do remember. And they most importantly build on that knowledge so that others can experience that as well. Now, okay, I won't get too much more into that. I'll just give you the example. So I'll give you a metaphor of what I'm talking about. And maybe what I'll do is actually pin myself because I don't know if everybody can see me there. There we go. So Indigenous education is best thought of as a tree, or a tick, right? This is what we describe as a tree. So look how crazy my hair is. Holy smokes. You can tell I woke up just a while ago. I've been on Zoom for a couple hours already. So Indigenous education is like a tree. In fact, there are models like the Canadian Council of Learning, and they've interviewed a bunch of elders, a bunch of traditional people from different First Nations, Inuit, Métis communities. And what they noticed was that in Métis, who come from First Nations communities, and oftentimes their teachings relate heavily to First Nations because Métis people were birthed from First Nations communities. Not so much for Inuit people because the land looks differently up there. So I could talk a little bit about that if you want, but theirs is mostly around, it's a relationship with the earth that looks very different, but it's still similar in principles. For First Nations leader, they said that learning is like looking at a tree or relating with a tree or working with a tree, spending time with trees, because trees are one of the great teachers of the world. It's said in our ceremonies that when a tree is placed, and if you look at Sundance, if you look at Medewin, if you look at Longhouse, trees have a very important part of our institutions. We often make our institutions out of trees. There's usually a tree right in the center of our institutions. And there's a reason for that. And it's because the tree is what's considered to be kind of the center teacher of our existence and life as Indigenous peoples, particularly around the Great Lakes. And because a tree is, you can learn this from many different ways. You can learn it from a rock, for example. That's what the Inuit talk a lot about, is about rocks. But we talk about trees because we're talking about our relatedness with the environment that we live in. And so I'm going to use this example, this thing that I have right here, as an example of a tree, which is a terrible example, I know, but I'm going to just do the best I can here. So if this is a tree, if this is a tree that I'm looking at, what elders would say is that when I look at that tree, I can spend the entirety of my life from sitting here looking at that tree. And when I look at that tree, I learn many things. I learn about the branches. I learn about the bark. I learn about the base or the trunk or the roots of that tree. And when I study that tree for a long time, I learn everything I need to know. I learn about science. I learn about ecology, how water works and how vegetation works. I learn about math. Something that you learn about trees is that trees exist in what we call fractals. meaning that they often work in twos or threes, especially branches. They'll often go 2, 2, 2, or sometimes they'll go 3, 3, 3. So that's what that is. That's called exponents. So you would learn about math from looking at a tree. You'd also learn about relatedness, or you can learn about health. Watch the way squirrels operate in trees, or the ways that bears mark trees. You'll notice a whole bunch of different things about trees. I could stare at that tree my whole life from this one spot, and I would learn to become a very learned, wise elder, because I would learn a lot and I could share that with all these other people. And we would build a nation together, and we'll call it Anishinaabe. But there's something really important also about the tree. When I stand here, I get a really beautiful, brilliant, and infinite set of teachings about the tree. But if I go and stand over here, for example, let's say I walk and I'm now over here, now I'm looking at the tree from this direction. So I used to see the tree from this direction, but now I see the tree from this direction. And I notice that the tree is different. The bark looks different on this side. The roots maybe are covered up in moss. The branches grow in a different direction. And as I look and I go, oh, there's more to the tree. I learned a lot of the tree learning from here, but I learned a lot more from here. So what I've realized, and from standing here, and we'll call that Christianity, or we might call that Buddhism, or we might call that Sikhism, or we might call that Islam. I don't care what we call it. It's a different perspective of the tree. And I've started to know that this is a very rich way of seeing the tree. I can learn lots. I can stand here most of my life learning about the tree in this way. And if I go back to the way that I was looking at it before, I realized something very pertinent and powerful, which is that the tree has changed from when I was standing here last time. Meaning that from when I was looking over here, time has happened and the world is a growing, living place, and that the tree now looks different. A squirrel has moved in. The tree was hit by lightning, and now I can see the rings inside the tree. The tree is getting sick, and so there's a exposed root that's become very rotten. So here's what I've realized. Two very central key principles that form the basis for Indigenous education. A, there's always more to learn. B, I'll never learn it all. I don't care how much time in my life I spend. I don't care how much of my spirit moves across the world in infinite patterns. There is always going to be more to learn about the tree. There will never be a time I know it all. So what that means is that learning is a lifelong process. We don't just learn like they do in school from the age of 6 to 18, and we give you a diploma and we say, okay, you're done learning now. See you later. Or probably the most terrible teaching, I think, in school ever, which is in graduation, we say to our students, get lost. We never want to see you again. Like in Indigenous education, when you attain something, meaning you remember it, you act it, your mind, your body, your heart, your spirit, you show expertise, you are recognized with gifts, meaning that you become, if you learn the drum songs enough, you become a drum carrier. If you learn the stories enough, you become a storyteller. If you learn how to pick medicines, you eventually become the chief medicine picker or the lead medicine picker. Can you imagine what a community would be like if we said, okay, you worked so hard to learn the drum songs. Here's a drum. Now get lost. Go away. Never come back. Well, it's stupid. It doesn't make any sense. Because Indigenous education isn't about sending people away and say, get lost. It's about saying, now you have a role, a critical role in making sure the system continues. And this is the most important thing I will say today about what is Indigenous education. which is that you, as a part of learning from this series and from other people like Joan, other Indigenous peoples that you're working with, you now have a responsibility. I'm not telling you that your responsibility is to go start teaching this to people, but that when you are gifted with something, remember what I told you before in the first session, which is that when you are gifted with something, you must return that gift. When someone gives you a name, offers you a handshake, offers you their time, remember tobacco is about time. When they offer you their time, you're expected to return that gift. And so as a result of you attending this session and learning from other Indigenous peoples, you are going to be given a gift. The most important gift is going to be one of learning, of education, is that you have an opportunity now to see a little bit of the tree from my perspective. I want to see the tree from your perspective now. I want you to share with not just me, but with the world, your perspective. And this is one of the most key and important areas of Anishinaabe education, which is we need you to bring your gifts, not just to us, but to the universe. Your responsibility by listening today is to deliver your gifts to others. Because by all of us giving our gifts to each other, we all get to see an infinite, most complete as possible without being complete, fullest without being finished view of the tree that we can get. And that makes us stronger people, because that makes us stronger Anishinaabe, because when I go to Islam and I go to prayers, when I go to the mosque, for example, right? I go to or I go to the Hindu temple, or which I go to ceremonies and prayers. I particularly go to the mosque all the time. Is that when I come back from the mosque where I'm looking at the tree here, I notice that I am a stronger Anishinaabe, because I have learned about a way a people see the earth, a people see people, a people see love, a people see raising children. The things that I learn when I'm in the mosque makes me a better Anishinaabe. And as Indigenous peoples, that is a central core principle of what we have in our education systems. Now, of course, and this is where it gets to a point of a little bit of an uncomfortable situation. Not everybody thinks this way. Not everybody acts this way. While we believe that education empowers and strengthens others by bringing your perspectives, knowledges, principles to others, people from other cultures and communities may not think this way. And we have had particularly bad experiences with what we call often the Jaganashak, or the Black Coats. These are people that are often from Christian traditions, because in the past, people who have represented Christian traditions have said, much like the story that we tell, a famous story amongst our people, which is that when the Black Coats showed up in our community, they said we want to tell you about this guy. He's a remarkable guy. He inspired millions of people. His name is Jesus, and he walks on water, and he dies and comes back to life. And we're like, that's an amazing story. We have stories about beings called Waynaboju that can turn into a rabbit, that can live forever, that can gift to the animals different things that they can do. And the Black Coats said, no, 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 no. Our guy is perfect, true, absolute. Your guy is devil worshiping, superstitious nonsense. And we would say, they sound like the same guy. That maybe Wayne Boju, our spiritual leader, our spiritual being, and Jesus might be cousins, might be related. Maybe there's a purpose for telling these stories that have two different parts to the same tree. Now, it is the Black Coats who said, no, absolutely, there's only one way to see the tree, and there's no other way to see the tree. And we're like, that doesn't make any sense. Because if you go to a tree, There's many ways to see the tree, and you never get to see it all. So how do you blackcoats know that you see all the tree? Because you've never once ever seen the entirety of the tree. And here's the problem, is that I actually don't think that's Christianity, by the way. I think that if anything Jesus taught us is that love and love others and trust, spend time, listen to others, which is the messages of Jesus. I'm not even a Christian, and I know that. Jesus is the person who washed the feet of others, said that you matter. So I don't think Jesus would say there's only one way to see the tree, and make sure that you cut your hair, leave your names behind, burn the drums. I don't think Jesus would have ever said that. But unfortunately, people who represented Christianity did that. And there are other cultures and religions throughout the world who do believe that there is only one way and there is no other way. That is not an Indigenous way. An Indigenous way would be of the position that there is a critically important perspective that needs to be given. It is our responsibility as Anishinaabe people to continue our way of seeing the tree. Because if we don't, if we give up our way of seeing the tree, then we are not fulfilling our responsibility, which we believe, which is that everyone should be giving their perspective of seeing the tree. And that's what makes creation. That's what makes our minds, our bodies, our spirits, our hearts and our spirits the most powerful. And if Anishinaabe said, okay, well, that's fine, Christians, we'll just burn the drums, we'll forget our names, we'll cut our hair, we'll send our children to residential school. Well, we would not be fulfilling our roles as Anishinaabe. We've given up. We would have died. But we didn't do that. Our families, even when our children were taken away, even when our ceremonies were banned, even when this shirt what I'm wearing today, there was a time period where if I was seen wearing this shirt in public, I would be arrested because you were not allowed to wear traditional clothing in public. It wouldn't matter if it's wearing a shirt like this with a button collar like that. If there is any traditional imagery, I would be arrested, I would be put into jail. And that was taking place from 1923 to 1960 in Canada. So for almost 40 years in Canada, Indigenous peoples were not allowed to wear their traditional clothing in public. And in fact, it was only changed in the early 1950s, going up to 1960, because of the Calgary Stampede. They wanted to have Indigenous peoples dressing up in their clothing, in their regalia. And so they changed the law for that. So don't think it was because Canada suddenly became a great place. It was because Canada wanted to support the Calgary Stampede. Anyways, that being said, it is crucially and important for all peoples to bring their food to the party, which I'm going to give you some examples of what Indigenous education looks like. Indigenous education is, as I mentioned before, it doesn't begin at a time at 9 o'clock and end at 3:30 by a bell. Can you imagine if you were sitting around with your granny and you said, okay, granny, it's 3:30, I can't beat anymore. Or okay, uncle, I know we're out here hunting, but it's 3:30. I gotta go. Like, no, that's stupid. Doesn't make any sense at all. Education takes as long as it needs to take, meaning that there is no beginning point and there's no end point. So there's not a point where you go, oh, well, I've learned it perfectly, because now you must demonstrate it to the people, demonstrate it to your family, demonstrate it to others, carry that teaching as you go. So I'll give you an example. So one of the things that my family has been gifted over the years, my father has been gifted, is a water drum. And a water drum is different than a powwow drum or a hand drum. In fact, I think you've seen my hand drum before. My hand drum's over there, just under I think I showed it to you before. But I will show it to you because I think it's important for me to explain. So here's my hand drum right here. And there is educational principles within this hand drum. Okay, oh, really beautiful sound there. There it is. There is the teaching of the tree right there within the teaching of the drum. So within our pedagogies, we have writing systems that look different than alphabetical writing systems, but you still can see we have published the teaching of the tree. The teaching of the tree is right there. It is that all perspectives are valuable, and that when they come together, we get the teaching of life. That's the teaching of the heartbeat that is inside of you. That is also the very first teaching you receive from your mother when you were in the womb. That's the first teaching that you will receive when you are in this body. Anyways, getting back to that, my family has a drum. It's different to that drum. It's a water drum, which is a bit of a taller drum, looks like this. It's about yay high and that kind of thing. My father has been learning about that drum for decades until finally he achieved enough of learning songs, carrying those teachings, where he received a drum. And that family, our family, then takes care of that drum. My sisters, myself, we have to learn how to tie that drum. We have to learn about the teachings around that drum. We have to learn about the songs that come with that drum. And so that's a process that we're now undergoing as a family. And that we are beginning to learn all of those things. It doesn't happen overnight. It's something that we must learn all the time, continually and consistently. And finally, at some point, we will then begin to carry that drum. Probably after my father passes away, we will be gifted that drum as a family, and we will have to carry that drum. We will carry that drum so that we need to know all of those things, but we have to demonstrate that consistently and continually. And if we disrespect that drum, if we, for instance, don't tie it properly, if we, for instance, forget songs, if we, for instance, sort of leave it behind and, forget about it and let it collect dust and don't treat it with respect. Let's say there's a big crack that's in the side and we don't fix that crack. People can take that drum away from us. Leadership can go, well, you need to relearn your relationship with that drum in order for you to get it back. That is such an important teaching, which is that for Indigenous education, it's about respect. It's about continually offering gifts to the community. And there is no beginning and end. There's no 9 to 3:30. And there's also no go get lost now that you've attained success. When you attain success in Indigenous education, your job is to continue the system. That's your job now. Your job is to take the teaching of what I have offered to you for today and continue to learn, to build your relationship, and yes, to see your connection of the way that you see the tree and the way that I see the tree, so that we all build our relationships together. That's what our perspective is of why I'm doing a session like this for today and why I've been talking about gift giving, names, stories, time, the land, because what we learn our best gifts from the land. And treaties are our building of relationships, our commitments to each other. And that's why I've put education following those three teachings, because education is now what you have done, and you are now ready, if you've attended all 4 sessions, to begin this process to see how you are connected with those teachings that you have already lived up to. Now, remember what I told you before, which is that, and I'll tell you again in future sessions, which is that you are already living in relationship with Indigenous peoples. So you've probably been learning longer than you even think. You live on Indigenous lands and territories. Remember, we talked about the territorial acknowledgement. So you live with Indigenous peoples. You might not always see them, but you are here because of Indigenous peoples. You also live in societies where Indigenous peoples are a crucial part and have contributed to help to build the country in which you are now living in. Remember that Kanata, Canada, is an Indigenous word, and all the things that are Canadian, democracy, healthcare, multiculturalism, all of those things are Indigenous ideas. You are being spoken to by an Indigenous person right now and working with Indigenous peoples. And then most of all is you will continue to live in a country, in a place, in a community with Indigenous peoples as well. So for all of those reasons, you have a responsibility to now see your connection, see the ways in which you are in living relationship with Indigenous peoples, because that's why you're here. It's not just about you sitting passively there. For the past 3 sessions, for some reason I had a big box show up on my screen that's just closed. It's not just about you passively sitting there and going, okay, Nigaan, tell me what I need to know this week. I'm now telling you it's time for you to dance. It's time for you to begin to reflect the stories that you have heard. It's time for you to begin to pick up a little bit of the work that I've given you and think about the gifts that you offer. Think about the relationship with the land that you are. Think about what it means to be a treaty person. What does it mean to be a part of treaties? And now I want you to stand up. I want you to come and pick medicines. I want you to come and help us to help build community, help us build the lodge. I want you to look at some trees. If I was there right now, if I was physically with everybody, and I do this with my classes, I would say, it's now your time to go and look at a tree. And we would all go stand up and we would go and we would look at them together. And I would say, what do you see over there? What do you see over there? What do you see? What do I see over here? And we would each take a turn talking about what we see. And I would say, now we are richer as having understood the tree in multiple ways. And in my classes, there's usually 30 students, 50 students, sometimes 70, 100 students. And I'll say, we now know 30, 50, 70, 100 ways of seeing the tree, and we are better off as a result. But we still don't know it all. I could say the same thing about God. Okay, you tell me the way that you see the Creator or God or Allah or whatever it is that you see. And all of us are better as having a result of hearing the different ways that we see what is often the same thing. What is all a part of looking at the sky and saying, what does all of this mean? Why are we here? Where are we going? Who can help us? What is it that we need to know from each other? And these are what my father often says is the 4 questions that every child, every person, every elder needs to know and spends their whole life trying to figure out. The most important question is, why am I here? Like, why, what does all of this mean? What does our life mean? And that is the central question around education that every culture asks. And the answer, my friends, is in talking, sharing, ultimately having responsibility, connection, and relationship with each other. And that's what I hope today is all about, is for you to now understand that it's now your time to do this work. And you're going to have a chance to do this work. And I'm expecting you to do this work on February 8th when I'm there. I want to be in a session in which I don't do as much talking as I have done in the first 4 sessions, sorry. Because it's not my job to be just your one fountain of just talk to you for the whole hour. The reason that I do this is so that you now have responsibility to do some of this work, to go out between now and February 8th, to look at a tree, but I don't really mean look at a tree, to talk to other people, to learn from some others and spend time with others, to ask questions, to do some research, to be curious about what it is the connection that you have with Indigenous peoples. And then bring that to our conversation on February 8th and share, not just with me, but with the entire community of how you view the tree. And each one of you must do that. We probably won't have time for everybody because we only have an hour, but we will do the best that we can to see an infinite series of perspectives that will make us all better, that will make us all treaty people on the land giving gifts. And if you haven't noticed, those are all the sessions up to now. So I could keep going to another part here, but I think what I'll do is maybe just get some. Did you want to clarify? Do you want me to clarify anything, Joan? Or I'm just going to take my spotlight off there. I could talk a little bit more about education and give some more examples, but is there anything you want me to clarify there, Joan, or anyone else, before I wrap up for today? think you're muted, Joan.
Is there anybody in the chat that wants to ask some question?
Let's see, I haven't looked at the chat.
We don't have anyone in the chat, but if there's someone who does have a question, please go and raise your hands, maybe, or.
Okay.
Yes. Can I just ask, how do you spell the word you mentioned, Anishinaabe?
I will put it in the chat for you.
Okay.
So Anishinaabe is the nation in which you are on if you are in Ontario. We basically, everything from basically everything around the Great Lakes is Anishinaabe. It's also other nations as well, because we have the crazy idea as Anishinaabe people that we can all share the land. So that Haudenosaunee people, Wendat people, Odawa, Potawatomi people, which are also Anishinaabe, what we can all share different nations together. The story of the rabbit, okay? Waynaboju, or that person, that being also goes by the name of Nanabush. So Waynaboju is the traditional name, but the anglicized version is Nanabush. And those are stories about what we call our creator being, which is probably the closest thing that we would have to Jesus in Christian traditions, meaning that we have a being that does very special and unique things, that create things. He's often funny, he's often interesting in our stories, and his name, actually, he doesn't have a gender either. He's both female and male, so he'd really be queer. He would be they. And so they would be they. It's probably a better way to describe it. And that would be Waynaboju. Because we as Anishinaabe people are inherently thinking about connection. We're not about traditions that think about separation of gender and sexuality. We're thinking about the ways things connect. Like, for instance, the way the land and the earth and the water connects. So we also think that way in terms of gender and sexuality. So our central being, Waynaboju, has both genders, all genders. And so the best way to describe that person would be queer. It would not be to go, oh, that's a man and this is a woman. On some days, Waynaboju is a man. On some days, Waynaboju is a female. But on other days, Waynaboju is both and all. It's not even about both, because we would say there's many different ways that gender can operate. It's not always about your biological. It's about how you do work in the world. Like, for example, we would say that all beings have to do fire. All beings have to pick up water. It's not about what biology that you have. Okay, so Rhonda's asking a question about spirits that are wandering. Okay. I probably didn't do a great job in explaining that, but I was just motivated the other day in a teaching that I was working with someone who was talking about creativity. And this person was talking about, why is it that we're creative? And the teaching of Anishinaabe is, why is it that we are creative? Well, how can we do things that are so amazing, like make a painting or write a story or do things that have never been seen before? Like, for example, we have in Manitoba the very first First Nations or Anishinaabe premier of a province. So his name's Wab Canoe, and that's never been thought of before. Like, we've never seen that. No Anishinaabe person has ever been a premier of a province. So we say, well, who would have thought that? Who would have actually thought, hey, I could go do that? The reason is because of dreaming. Dreaming is the central core gift that Anishinaabe were given at the first moment of creation. We were given many gifts: our language, our perspective of the tree, our clan system. But one of the gifts that we were also given was the gift of dreaming, which is that our dreams are ways for our spirit, who works with this physical body, to go beyond the limitations of that body. Like, for example, none of you can fly. Like, you can flap your arms like this as much as you want, but you're not going to fly. You can jump off a building. You're still not going to fly. I don't care how many times you try. But your spirit can. Your spirit can fly. I know that because in my dreams, I have flown. In my dreams, I have levitated. In my dreams, I have jumped bigger distances than my body could have ever possibly have done. And that tells me that my spirit has creativity. My spirit can imagine life beyond this physical body. And that's why the mind, the body, the heart, the spirit is so critically important, because the spirit helps the mind. The mind is a very analytical, physical thing. It goes, okay, this is how this works. This is how this works. But if the spirit helps the mind, we can write an amazing story or do an amazing painting or cure cancer because of creativity. And that's why we need our spirit to wander. And your spirit is said to have always wandering. As in Anishinaabe, we say, your spirit's sometimes always wander. And like a good example would be daydreaming. That's oftentimes what we call daydreaming. You know, when somebody's just sitting there and they're kind of like phased out, right? And we're like, oh, their spirit's wandering right now. That's what we would say in our culture. In our language, we would say, oh, their spirit is going off and looking at other things, and you call your spirit back. And so that's oftentimes why we hit the drum 4 times when we begin a ceremony, because we're calling everything, including our spirits, to attention and to come to this place. Okay, so I hope I clarified that thing around the wandering spirits. I'm going to go to a SMA STAM book. How can we start to do this work and take this responsibility without much of a community? I know that we are in connection and relationships all the time, but I often feel very isolated. I get this question a lot. Here's what I would say. YouTube is your friend. YouTube is a wonderful resource for you to access Indigenous peoples doing amazing work, experience those things on speeches, readings, really cool videos and interviews. If you just Google my name, for example, like let's say, for example, you want to learn more about what I have to say on things, whatever, right? You can YouTube mine. There's hundreds of videos of me on YouTube. And so you can learn all of that, spend a little bit of time with me. You could also learn from others that I've spoken about. YouTube is a good beginning point. It shouldn't be an end point, because you should be in a living relationship with people. But in the beginning, when you are feeling isolated, or maybe you're feeling nervous and you're thinking, oh, I don't feel comfortable going to this event where Indigenous peoples are at because I wouldn't know what to say and I feel awkward. Well, the way to get through that is to begin to do some of your own research, buying a book, for example. Josh Whitehead is a really wonderful writer. I think he's one of the best writers in the country at the moment. There's a really great new book by Drew Hayden Taylor. Amazing poets like Katarina Vermette or Lee Miracle, or, I could just name all these different Indigenous writers. Read, spend time on YouTube, and then get a bit of courage and try going to events. And those first couple events might be passive events. Maybe it's a march, maybe it's a powwow, maybe it's a concert. But the expectation is when you go there, eventually when you build a relationship with Indigenous peoples, we're eventually going to tell you that it's your turn to dance. Because that's who we are as a people, meaning that we need you to give your gifts for our gifts to become stronger. I need you to go to talk about what it's like to be Muslim, because that makes me a better Anishinaabe. It helps me better to become a better person, to learn about different ways of seeing the world, to learn about the tree more. As Anishinaabe, we want that. We want you to pick up your work and share that your food with us and let us taste it. Let us experience your gift, because that makes us stronger people. We would never tell you to burn your drum or to cut your hair or to forget your language. We would never tell you that. We might tell you that it's time to listen to our perspective. We don't always just want to hear other perspectives. We know that it's our responsibility to share our perspective. So we might say, okay, it's time for us to speak now. We've heard your story. We want to tell you our story now. But we would never tell you that your story isn't important, isn't valuable, isn't crucial and important, just as our story is. All right. Okay. So I think, you know what I think we should do here, because we've reached near the end of my time. I have to be on TV in under about 5 minutes with APTN. I'm going to ask one of the people, maybe Joan, maybe you can allocate somebody or do it yourself, or is to grab some of these questions, and we'll start with those in February 8th. Can you do that for me?
Yes,
So
we
maybe
can
you
do
could
that.
copy and you know, put those somewhere, maybe in a Word document. We can pick up some of those questions on February 8th. We can start with some of those. But like I mentioned before, I really want that to be a session in which you are speaking as much, if not more so, than I am speaking, because it's your job now to pick up some of this work and talk about what your relationship is with Indigenous peoples, talk about what some of the sessions that we've been doing of how they've been impacting you, or talk about things that you maybe think are different or that you're seeing connections with. You don't always have to ask a question. I like comments too. All right. Is that all right, Joan?
It certainly is. Speaking of writers, is there anything you'd like to tell us?
Are we talking about my book?
Yes.
I don't know.
Stocks.
I have a book coming out on May 28th. It's called Winnipeg, Visions of Canada from an Indigenous Center. It's still in process. There are advanced reading copies floating around out there, but they don't have the pictures and they don't have all the edits done. But I just finished the second edit of that book. We have yet another round of edits to go through. And so that'll come out May 28th. It's with Penguin, or also called Maclean and Stewart. You'll be able to see it in airports everywhere and bookstores and all this kind of stuff. So that'll come out in May 28th. And yeah, when you put a book in the world, this is how you feel. That's how I feel about the whole thing. I'm pretty nervous about the whole thing, but I did the best I could. That's what I'll say.
Having grown up there, I can't wait. Carol, did you want to say anything?
Yes, so for the session next month, I've put a little link in the chat. If you could just let us know if you'd like to, if you'd be able to attend in person. It's going to be at our central program offices at 255 Rainy Avenue. And we'll send you more information, but we wanted to give the group today sort of first dibs on securing some seats, because space is limited. So if you are able to attend on Feb 8th, please indicate. The session will be available online too. We're going to do a hybrid. So if you can't, you can still join us on Zoom. Otherwise, you know, come to the session. It's going to be, and you can see our space and everything. There'll be a little, some light snacks and refreshments, but it'll be wonderful to have you. So it's in the chat. Please just take a moment to let us know, and I'm going to send this out through email as well. Thank you.
So excited. Thank you, everybody, and have a fabulous month. We'll see you in February.
A great
Yeah,
job,
miigwech, everybody.
Kira. Thank you so much.
Miigwech, yep.
Thank you.
Take
Thank you
care.
so much, Niigaan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
you.
Thanks,
Miigwech,
everyone.
miigwech.